what's there to do in Ohio besides watch mediocre football? Am I right?
Dude, I think we have someone from Ohio on the call right now.
Oh, welcome to the Bitcoin Beat with Shaun and Jeff. I'm Shaun. This is my co-host Jeff, and we have Andrew Tilmann here with us today. We're chatting about the Midwest Bitcoin Summit. This is a new conference that a lot of us feel have come out of nowhere, but if you're in the space, you've heard about it, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. And Andrew, we're glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And to answer your question, when I lived in Ohio, a lot of people actually ask me that because I'm not from Ohio originally, but I would always answer jokingly, I leave. And it's because I was in like the worst part of Ohio. I was living in like central western Ohio where it's just flat cornfields. So I often left Ohio to do something more fun, but it's a good state. Don't get me wrong.
Awesome. No cow tipping exercises or anything?
Honestly, no, I think we did probably more cow tipping in Michigan than Ohio. There are more respectable farmers down there.
Right.
Nice.
Well, we appreciate you jumping on with Jeff and I to chat a little bit about the conference. You're somewhat new to the space as far as getting your name out there with this conference, as opposed to the normal, like, who are you? What do you do? Like, what's your reason for being in Bitcoin? What brought you to this point in your career?
Who am I? I'm Andrew Tilmann. Most people don't know who I am unless you know me in real life. And more or less it's because I've stayed away from social media. Like I've been maybe at most a passive observer on X, but I really don't, I enjoy real life, and I don't know, I've just kind of avoided a lot of unhealthy things in my life. Whether it's like unhealthy food, drugs, kind of bad habits. And social media to me can be a very toxic place. So I've kind of strayed away from it, but inherently you have to be a part of the social media platform in order to run a business nowadays. So especially for a conference where you need to have like an enormous reach and have awareness about what you're doing. So really my background is chemical engineering. What brought me to Bitcoin is so many different things. I mean, when I grew up, I lived in a very podunk, very rural part of Michigan, and there's not a lot of job opportunity out there. My dad's blue collar. My mom worked for the state of Michigan, and I, at a young age in like 2001, had a real big kind of world break in my view of like how things worked, because my dad lost his job in 2001, and my family went through like really tough financial times for like maybe the next few years. And I was like 7 years old, and I just remember the amount of stress and anxiety and fear that I felt from my parents. And at that age, I just kind of it imprinted in me no one's here to really save you in life, and you have to figure things out yourself. And it was like, why is it we're struggling so hard financially? And, that kind of stayed with me as I grew up. And I've always been very entrepreneurial and trying to find my way into solving my money problem. That's just kind of this psychological imprinting on my my psychological state as a young kid. But when I discovered Bitcoin, it was in 2011. It was during the Silk Road days, and I was in college at the time. My first time ever seeing it, it was some guy in college bought drugs online, and they were getting delivered to his apartment. And I was like, how did you get this? And he told me, he's like, oh, I bought it on Silk Road. I paid with Bitcoin. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And he showed me his Bitcoin address and, his residual amount there. And, you fast forward a few years, and it was really 2014 into early 2015. My friend Yash, who's actually one of the co-founders of Midwest Bitcoin Summit, he went deep down the rabbit hole. And Yash is from Uzbekistan. So he's been doing remittance payments back home to his family for a long time through Western Union. And really what suckered him into this rabbit hole was, I can send Bitcoin back home, and I don't have to go through a third party. And I don't have to pay these fees. Sure. And no one can stop this. And he just pressured me as I'm going through engineering school. He's like, hey dude, you gotta listen to all these podcasts, read these books, listen to everything. And so I just started stacking slowly in 2015. 2016, and then my brain just exploded in 2017 in the bull market. And I got involved for NGU, really. I mean, that's the honest truth. I was like, I'm gonna be rich, yay. And then when 2017 happened, it kind of really broke my view of everything. And I started to ask the questions of, why is this happening? How can this thing run so hard? Is it a scam? Is it fake? And so I went deep down the rabbit hole, and then I started to understand what is money, and all these things that kind of led up to that point, me being fearful of money, me being fearful of the economy, stability. Now I started to understand, what is fiat? And what are all these problems that I see around me in the Midwest, like the hollowing out of the manufacturing base, the lack of jobs, the poverty, the crime, everything that was around me that was just like psychologically terrifying to me as a kid. Bitcoin started to answer those questions, and it was the one shining light in the darkness. And, you know, this sounds kind of pessimistic and scary and like, oh, like I had a horrible life, but I didn't. It's just, it was always with me. And so what really brought me to Bitcoin is like finally the solution to all these problems I've been like questioning my whole life.
Yeah, you hit the head on so many things there. It's just like once you learn about it, you truly feel like you've escaped the matrix in a way, and you want to orange pill everybody, which kind of leads us to the topic of today, which is the conference. But before we get into all that, first I want to thank you so much for letting us get to know you, letting our viewers get to know you, being vulnerable and coming up onto a podcast like this. I've kind of always been the same way too. I've kind of been like hit and miss with social media, you know, really value my privacy. But as an entrepreneur and a business owner myself, I've learned that it's kind of a double-edged sword, and you're in a way forced to use it. And some people almost look at you skeptically if you're not online or you don't have an online presence, and they're like, what is this guy hiding? So I totally get that. But before we get into the conference thing here, I got to ask, are you going to launch your own digital asset treasury company?
No. Well, I mean, no, not at all. We're doing something a little bit unique, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, down the line. But no treasury company, no, you know, public entity play at all. I don't care about that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the conference. One of the curious aspects is location. Why did you choose Ohio as the spot for this conference?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, like I said, I grew up in Michigan, and right out of college, I had like a very interesting career really up until me joining like the Bitcoin industry full time. But out of college, I took my first real engineering job, and it moved me to Ohio. And so I spent 6 years in Ohio, you know, 3 years building a paper mill with a corporate engineering team from, you know, ground up. And then you know, I didn't really want to stay in the paper industry, so I ended up starting a medical marijuana processing lab that was like 10 minutes from where I was living in Ohio, which is super random, but not so random because I actually started and helped one of my good friends out of college, Jesse, with the first medical marijuana processing lab in the state of Michigan in the Southwest. And this is before there's even licensing to do so. So we were like doing, you know, legal marijuana processing out of his garage, and we had this like literally a laboratory built in his garage. And so I knew everything about it, like from a principal perspective of how to do this. And so in Ohio, I made a lot of connections, and one of the connections I made was my good friend Lenny Berry, and Lenny runs the OCHBS, and he owns it. It's the Ohio Cannabis Health and Business Summit, which is the third largest cannabis conference. And you know, as we're exploring things, you know, professionally, and we were doing a little bit of stuff together post me exiting the cannabis industry. I just kind of dawned on me because I ended up moving to Chicago, and I thought, you know, going from Ohio to Chicago, like the third largest city in the United States, the most like, you know, iconic city in the Midwest, I was like, there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on in Chicago with Bitcoiners, and there was not a lot going on. Like this was 2 years ago. There's a lot more going on now, and it just kind of like disappointed me so much that I was like, you know, we need something big in the Midwest. There is no large conference for, you know, Bitcoin only. There's all these like altcoins or blockchain or whatever it may be, but there's never been a large scale Bitcoin conference. And really all the Bitcoin conferences have always been in like the coastal region or, you know, Texas or somewhere where like the economy is great, you know, it's a good place to host a conference, but it's really like, to me, it's like those are the economies that won in this fiat system with the reserve currency status. You know, the USD propped up those economies. And then in the Midwest, uniquely, we have been hollowed out because the manufacturing base has moved to, you know, foreign economies with cheaper labor markets. And so like, it's just like kind of this forgotten economic zone. In Ohio specifically, is very pro-business, it's pro-energy, it's pro-Bitcoin. And Columbus, uniquely, is one of the fastest growing cities. And it's very tech forward. And there's an enormous like base of Bitcoiners there. And, you know, the Midwest is just, I mean, it was either Chicago or it was Columbus. And Columbus is amazing because, you know, we are centered perfectly to reach, you know, the East Coast. We're not a far flight from most of, you know, New York or Florida. And it's just like, you know, centrally positioned. It's really, you know, nicely laid out, as well as like the convention center is probably the best next to in McCormick Place in Chicago. But we're going to have this conference in the Greater Columbus Convention Center. It's where the Arnold Classic is held. So it's a massive venue, 1.8 million square feet. And another key factor is that Lenny and his conference, OCHBS, will be moving down with us for the first inaugural Midwest Bitcoin Summit. So we're running both his conference, which historically took place in Cleveland, and we're placing both of them in Columbus side by side and giving everyone from the cannabis side free access to the Midwest Bitcoin Summit.
I saw that, and I think yesterday we talked a little bit about that on the Bitcoin Today show on the X Space. So they are getting passes to the expo to come check out everything that's going on in our conference, right? So it's a great opportunity for us we call it orange pilling business owners, but they're legitimately people that have historically been debanked, shut down, people that are just ripe for the freedom to be able to transact however they want. So that's going to be a good tie-in for a lot of us here. Other than that, that's something that's interesting that I think will help make sure this first event of yours can go off successfully, because you're partnering with an already established major event, and that's a brilliant idea. Besides that, and the location, you mentioned this is a couple times, a Bitcoin only type event. How are you planning to set that apart from other conferences other than just the geographic issues where they're at?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, there will not be a session, a talk, a keynote, a panel, a fireside chat that will discuss an altcoin or a shitcoin. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this platform, but we will. That is like our internal policy. We have zero tolerance for it. The Midwest Bitcoin Summit is really at its core about revitalizing the Midwest, and by extension, inspiring others to do that in their region as well. I have no time, I have no energy, I have no tolerance for discussing speculative altcoins, and there's plenty of other conferences that people can go to for that. So first and foremost, we will never accept money from an altcoin type of company. I don't care about this. This is truly a Bitcoin focused movement. Secondly to that, I think something that is a huge miss for a lot of the other conferences is if you're trying to orange pill and bring new people into the space, you're not going to get a single person willing to pay $500 to walk in the door at a conference if they're curious about Bitcoin or they own $50 in Bitcoin. It's just not going to happen. No one's going to spend that kind of money. You're going to get the same people. It's going to be an echo chamber of the same individuals, and that's fun and it's great. And that's maybe what the experience you're looking for. But our goal is really to spread Bitcoin, educate people on Bitcoin, and push the adoption forward. So we're starting our ticket pricing at $50 to the expo side and $100 for GA, which opens up more of the sessions in the main stage. So we're doing something that I think is right for the individuals, the attendees. We're making it very affordable to be there if you're curious or you're new to Bitcoin. And then obviously, we're giving free access to the cannabis side folks, and also for veterans as well as students. So we have a partnership with OSU. Unfortunately, the club is called the Cryptocurrency Club, but we've been working with them to, be more enlightened on what Bitcoin is versus crypto.
It's a good Trojan horse.
It is, yeah. And actually, the founder and the president of that club is our first intern. So he's a hardcore Bitcoiner at this point. They can't go back and change the name, but yeah. I mean, what are we doing differently? We're making it more accessible for people. We're obviously placing it in a region that has been ignored by the other conferences. We're making it cheaper, and we are going to be pure signal on Bitcoin.
Nice.
Awesome. To the point where, real quick, Jeff, to the point, I think you said something, if somebody on stage just does start shilling some kind of altcoin, they may be not just walked off the stage, but you personally, they might be kicked out of the event center and expeditiously removed.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to every single speaker, unless I already knew them, but I have a 30-minute to 1 hour conversation with every single speaker that you see up on our list. And I explicitly and very frankly let them know, if you work in crypto, this is Bitcoin only, and we will not tolerate you talking about any other coins out there. Yeah, we'll cut them off on stage. We will walk them out. We will kick them out of the conference, and they'll never be invited back.
Yeah, and speaking of speakers, I'm on your guys' website right now, which, by the way, for everyone listening, is midwestbtc.com. A lot of information about the conference right there. We're 117 days away. It starts on September 23rd and goes from September 23rd to 24th in Columbus, Ohio. It also looks like the city in the background there. Is that, Andrew, is that Columbus right there?
Yeah, that's the Columbus city skyline, and the venue is visible. It's not like being highlighted there, but actually what you can see is COSI, the Columbus Science and Industry Museum, which is where our main after party will be, which is going to be pretty exciting. But yeah, thank you for highlighting the dates and the location.
Yeah, and just going back to the world-class speaker list that you have here, who are some speakers that you're personally excited to hear from?
So he's not on the list right now, but I just confirmed with Joe Bryan. So what's the problem? He'll actually be opening up on the main stage on day one. Very excited about that. I mean, Joe's not like super active online, but like everybody almost that's in the Bitcoin space has heard of what's the problem and, shared that video with their family. Ahmed Amoose is amazing. I love that guy. I'm very focused on health and family and everything that like is kind of at the core of having a normal, happy, healthy life. So I really like what Ahmed Amoose is doing. He's going to be showcasing his new book launch, which is called Fiat Medicine, which is very interesting. I'm very excited for that. And then, we just have so many like rock stars that are going to be talking online. I mean, if you want my personal opinion, I think Hodl Tarantula and Adam Ortoff are going to be my favorites because those guys are like, I don't want to use the word unhinged, but they're unfiltered and I love them to death and I love everything they say because they're just so raw. But we got everything in between, like the corporate side to, the Bitcoin miners, the energy, the hardware wallets, the software wallets. So it's a full spectrum Bitcoin conference.
Nice. I saw you had recently put out the floor plan. I think it was just yesterday, the day before, for the Expo Center, and it's massive, and it looks like it's a rendering of what it's going to look like, and I'm excited. You had hinted at this a minute ago about this after party, which first I heard about it was I think yesterday on the Bitcoin Today show. What's in the works for this after party?
Yeah, so this is really where Lenny shines the brightest. Like Lenny's kind of operationally running a lot of stuff in the background, but he had a 25-year, maybe 30-year career inside the music industry as a marketing executive, and then he went and he's represented people from Janet Jackson, Tupac, Biggie, all the American Idols, Snoop Dogg, etc. But the after parties are like literally his after parties. Typically, they were held at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But people like just go to the after party as opposed to the conference. So like they're like 1,000-person plus after parties, and so. Can't do that now. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was in Cleveland, but in Columbus, we're doing COSI. And COSI has like all these different activations inside the venue. And then outside, in the atrium in the backside, there's like the river walk. And then it's just beautiful setup. We're going to have all these large tents, a DJ, catered food, drinks, everything that's going on. So there'll be, music inside, dancing inside. A lot of activations just because like inherently inside the Science and Industry Museum, there's like already built-in activations, but it's just going to be like a massive party. We're expecting probably like 1,500 to 2,000 people in there.
Man, well, that sounds exciting. I'm going to look forward to that. Will that be something that will be listed on the website as like a separate ticket, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, yep. We're just wrapping up a few things with the venue, but yeah, tickets are. I believe we're going to price them at $70, might be cheaper, but $70 entry. And so, again, trying to keep it fairly cheap, but, the venue is quite expensive. Yeah, we'll have that up on the website soon. We'll have more details coming down the social media pipeline about the venue and the after party and, some promo videos to get everybody excited.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff, did you have any last questions about the conference before we talk about the next subject?
No, yeah, I think it'd be great to jump into the next subject, the Bitcoin Scholarship Foundation.
Yeah, I'm extremely interested in this. I caught the last part of your presentation in the Whale Lounge at the Vegas conference, and then I saw you do a little presentation to the Columbus Bitcoin Meetup. Shout out to them for posting that as well. This Bitcoin Scholarship Foundation is something that is pretty unique, and you're obviously passionate about it. Tell our viewers who haven't heard anything about that, what's your goal with it? What does it do, and how does it work? Yeah,
so first off, I mean, the background on this goes back 4 years, and this is something like when I was running the cannabis company. I was the boss, right? So like I was constantly just orange pilling my employees and like forcing it down their throat. But I was always talking to everybody in the community about Bitcoin. I spent every single evening at the YMCA with my wife working out, and really the inspiration for this foundation originated in Lime, Ohio, which is like again Rust Belt city, and there's just no jobs there, and like so many of the kids that I talk to will never leave, and like they've never left, and their family for generations have never left, and they're like just kind of stuck in this rut. And if you get a job over at like the refinery, you pray to God that you never get fired and you'll work there for the rest of your life, and like that's the greatest thing that could ever happen to you. Like that's kind of like the feeling that you have living there. And so I just kept thinking, I mean, I'm always just thinking about Bitcoin and orange pilling people through this whole process in my professional career. And I was thinking, like, how do you fix this? Because it's not unique to Lima. It's when I grew up in Jackson, Michigan, it's the same thing there. When I, go to Chicago or cities outside of that, or travel through Indiana, it's the same thing. It's just this hollowed out economy, people that are just like living there generational over generation. And I'm like, how do you fix this? Because these kids grow up not knowing anything else, like they're the parents or the grandparents that moved there and saw the fallout of the economy and the loss of jobs. Like that knowledge is kind of being lost, and these kids are just growing up knowing nothing else, And so the idea here is, how do you fix generational poverty? And Bitcoin is such a powerful tool that I just kind of like grinded on this idea for a long time. And what we're doing is we're providing two things: opportunity and education. And the educational aspect is financial literacy education. And it's comprehensive, and it starts from ages 5 to 18. So we want to like incorporate this from the very earliest years that a child is like in their developmental years of learning about information. And so we're providing this information kind of cyclically. We're introducing key core concepts like very simply, and then getting more advanced as they get older. And so that educational program is the foundation. And second to that, the opportunity that we're giving them is Bitcoin, and we're giving them conditional Bitcoin. We're giving each child in the program $500 in Bitcoin and time locking it until the age of 25. And at the age of 25, if they've completed the financial literacy program and do not have a felony offense on their record, they have full access to that Bitcoin and whatever the US dollar value is. And we don't have any constraints on what they can spend it on. They can spend it on paying off their debt, going to college, starting a business, buying a car, putting a down payment on a house. I don't care. They could go below all of that, Bitcoin, convert it to USD and spend it on whatever they like. I could not care less. Because at the end of the day, the economic situation that they live in is struggling. And so worst case scenario, the kids learn nothing. And they go blow it on like a Mercedes, or they, spend it at the strip club. I don't know. And at least the economy is getting like a little bit of a stimulus from them. Generationally, this is unlocking liquidity in an economy that's suffering. And so like you get a little bit of a revamp in these like suffering economies, which helps the business owners, which helps the circular economy in that area. But the best case scenario is the kid learns a lot about financial literacy, is a competent and like responsible adult at age 25. And now it allows them to get out of their situation. They can leave their environment. They can buy a car and drive somewhere else. They can go to college. They can put a down payment on a house, whatever it may be. It gives them the opportunity to get out of their situation. And that's what, I believe in hard work. I believe in extreme ownership. And that's why I wanted to leave it open. I want people, if they didn't learn anything, I want you to make that mistake, because you have to burn your hand on the stove to know it's hot, and I think, just the social pressure of, not just this one child, but 10 children in your class also have this same opportunity. And you've been thinking about it for the last, 20 years, because you've had it since you're 5 years old. There's just going to be this like massive opportunity of 2 decades for certain children of thinking about this. And they have an emotional attachment to the asset because they have the visible, app in their pocket on their smartphone of Unchained, watching the price go up and go down, and feeling euphoric and feeling afraid. All the while they're getting education around this topic, and that emotional attachment, the skin in the game, gives them the reason of why do I care. And that's the hardest part. Like if you live in a horrible situation, a violent household, violent like community, who the hell is going to care about me telling you what money is? And it's an abstracted form of like economic energy. They're like, I don't care, dude. My parents got robbed last night. But like, you have to give them a reason why, and so that's what we're trying to do.
And you said you were partnering with Unchained.
Correct.
That's good. They're a really good Bitcoin focused company. I like that. I especially like, and I mentioned this when we talked before, I like the thought ahead about planning for what if it doesn't work? Well, then they still have that appreciated value and it goes into the economy, and you're planning for those things where it doesn't work. And then you're right, the buy-in, they can watch it appreciate over time. And that, you might be a little bit younger, but like Jeff and I, at least I remember when I was younger, they were talking about, buy these kids bonds, and 10 or 15 years from now, they'll have enough money to do X, Y, and Z. Well, number one, we all know how bonds worked. They didn't, at least not in the last 20, 30, 40 years. And so I didn't watch it. Nobody watches it. And the value at the end doesn't have any kind of real buying power. But when you do it with the Bitcoin, you're basically orange pilling them to their own future. And I like that. I like that whole idea.
Yeah, there's something interesting about it too. There's a lot of things you can unpack, but like, I would say statistically or stereotypically, a lot of these communities that we would be servicing would vote Democratic. And so the Democratic Party and their base of voters, we're orange pilling that future generation. And so like the idea long term is like, Bitcoin's apolitical. It doesn't have a side one way or another, but like we need to make it political, like suicide to not embrace Bitcoin. And so what better way than like the future generation being fully like orange pilled from the poverty class and seeing the economic benefits of it. And so then when they go to vote and they're like, what is their opinion on Bitcoin? And the politician hates it. They're like, what's wrong with this person?
Yeah, that's so key. And I think like taking it to the next level in terms of helping the younger generation understand the power of what Bitcoin is teaching them that it is a bearer instrument that they can self-custody, which essentially means that no one can take it from them. It's extremely hard to confiscate. And if they want to die with their private keys, they can. I just watched the podcast. Michael Saylor summed it up really well, talking about that. And the fact that this is the first time in history where we actually have a monetary asset with that property, where you can take it to your grave and you can give the middle finger to the state and say, I'm not going to let you take my property. And I truly believe that if more people understood that, then adoption would not seem so trivial. It wouldn't seem so polarizing, because as you said, Bitcoin's apolitical. It's for everybody.
Yeah, we all get to be pirates with our buried treasure somewhere, permanently. But yeah, man, I mean, I think the fundamental issue, I've orange pilled I don't know how many people in my life, or attempted to, probably thousands at this point. But I think the biggest problem is with whether you're in the poverty class, middle class, upper class, most people don't understand what money is. Like fundamentally, what is money? Like it's the US dollar. Like most people don't even know that the US dollar is not backed by gold. It's crazy. Like the disconnect on the educational side is just so vast that like the foundation, the very first principle kind of understanding of just how the world works or how money works is absent. And so like, that's why we're starting there. We're starting with what is money,
I love that.
You got a lot of work cut out for you. You have a lot of plans for courses for the education portion, and a lot to build out with that, is my understanding, right?
Yeah, it's 168 different courses. So, I mean, it's easier now because, AI is such a workhorse tool that we can like plan it out, get the core concepts, and then like allow AI to work most of that for us, and then go through and review it. And, like I said, it's cyclic reintroduction of the same core concepts that are just like incrementally getting more complex. So it's not quite as much, and a lot of the heavy lifting can be kind of like kicked off to AI, more or less.
Awesome. So I assume there's going to be a lot of talk about the Bitcoin Scholarship Foundation at the Midwest Bitcoin Summit, I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk about it. I'll do a keynote on it. But I don't, I've been to other conferences where there's like a 501c3 nonprofit that's behind the conference, and they kind of use it as a platform to shove it down all the attendees' throats. And I want this to be more organic. I want everything to really just be organic. I want it to work because it's a good idea. I'm a free market maximalist, and I think if you have good ideas and like the world hears about them, you don't need to shove it down their throat. It'll just organically kind of unfold, and that's just been my experience so far.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing about the Scholarship Foundation. I find that really interesting. Going back to the conference, I wanted to have a quick little segment where we do some like rapid fire questions. some basic
Sure.
questions that we don't need to get too in depth to unless there's something you want to share on it. But for example, thinking about other conferences, does the Midwest Bitcoin Summit have plans to live stream the event or record it to broadcast later? Are there any plans for that?
Yeah, so we're going to be live streaming both the main stage and the expo side stage. All stages will be recorded,
Okay.
but yeah, only those two will be live streamed.
The 2 will be live streamed, but all 4 will be recorded so you can watch later.
Yes, and as well as the media desk, that'll have a live stream as well.
Oh, awesome. I saw that on the video too, the little rendering you have planned for that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Ticket pricing. You have early bird pricing listed right now. Is that going to be a time limited thing, or is that pretty much the prices that'll be the same all the way up to the end?
We should just update that on the website. That's our permanent pricing. We're not going to do this like crazy game of, oh, you have 10 days until the price goes up. That's our pricing. $50 for Expo, GA is $100, $400 for the business pass, VIP passes are $1,500. They're not going to change.
Awesome. Will these conferences every year be in Columbus? Thinking forward, do you have plans to move it to different cities in the Midwest, or are you going to plan for Columbus every year?
We're going to definitely run it back next year in Columbus. The cost of moving it is enormous, and like the logistics of it is just like a nightmare. So we'll probably run it in Columbus for at least 1 more year or 2 more years. And then the game plan is to bring it to Chicago. That is, and that's a nightmare in itself, but yeah.
Okay. So
Columbus
a couple
for the
years,
next one.
prepare and have the cost ready to do something big in Chicago. Awesome.
Yeah.
Will merch and food be able to be bought by Bitcoin or the Lightning Network, or is it just based on the individual merchant?
Yeah, so merch will definitely be payable in Bitcoin. So we use Square as our payments processor. So you can purchase tickets in Bitcoin on site. At the merch table, you will be able to buy in Bitcoin there as well. As far as the food vendors, I'm working with the Greater Columbus Convention Center to onboard Steak and Shake. I've looked at their entire approved vendor list, and not a single one of them, unfortunately, has a Square terminal. So we're working with the venue to try to figure out how we get the concessions area to accept Bitcoin. And it's a bit of a heavy lift because like the way they have all like the organization structures spread out, like they have third parties running a lot of their aspects at the venue. So TBD on the food if we can pay in Bitcoin, but definitely, at the Bitcoin Bazaar, there'll be plenty of companies selling products and you can definitely pay in sats.
Okay. So work in progress. Cool. In 4 to 5 words, something short, when we walk out of the Midwest Bitcoin Summit and we're on our way home, what do you want us to be thinking about? What will we walk away thinking after attending this first conference?
To be honest with you, I think what I want someone to walk away with is, thank God we're doing this. Thank God this is happening, because I feel like in the Bitcoin industry, it's kind of like the old guard has gotten tired and there needs to be a new wave of Bitcoiners that are taking the reins and pushing this thing forward and spreading Bitcoin. And I think the podcasting space has been instrumental for me. And I think a lot of the Bitcoin conferences and the meetups that are just happening every single week, every month, they're just so fundamentally important. And a lot of people are getting burned out. And so I think, just the fresh blood, the fresh faces, just like the energy that you will experience at the Midwest Bitcoin Summit, hopefully reignites the flame for a lot of people and also starts that fire inside a lot of new people. And that's what I really want people to leave with, is like, this movement is growing. We are strong. We are united. And, like this kind of toxic shit you see online in the Bitcoin space, sometimes on X or other platforms, like that's not reality. Reality is we are building the new world and this is actually happening.
Awesome. Well, the last rapid fire question, the cannabis conference that's going on right there, they all get a pass and a discount to the expo for us. Do the Bitcoiners get any kind of discount to the cannabis conference?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's reciprocal. So if you have any pass at the Midwest Bitcoin Summit, you have free access to the OCHBS Expo side, which is pretty cool. And I'd recommend going over there. I've been there for like the last 4 years. So yes, both sides get free access to both expos. For VIP guests on both sides, they'll have, extended reach. And so you'll have access to all stages on both sides. And then the business side will have more, accessibility into the business side of OCHBS.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that's the end of the rapid fire questions. Just got two last things. And then Jeff, if you have any final comments. One, going forward, we're only about 4 months away from the conference happening. What should us, the viewers, be looking for on your social media accounts? I know you said you've been away from social media quite a bit. So you have a social media presence for your channel. You have the Summit channel. You have your website. What should we be looking for as far as things coming down the pipe? Future announcements, maybe big speakers? What can you hint at?
Yeah, so we've kind of like had a foundational posting schedule for our social media platforms right now. I think the big thing to take a look at and pay attention to is, we'll be posting the speaker panels, the keynotes, all the topics. So the programming is going to be launched, kind of incrementally, but majority of it will be finished in June as we stack the remaining 50 speakers up until the date. But keep an eye out for the actual sessions that are coming down the pipeline. Keep an eye out for COSI and the promotions there, as well as tickets going live next month, as well as, we're just going to continue to give an idea of like what to expect for the attendees. So, that rendering of the Patel Grand Ballroom, which encompasses the business hall, the VIP lounge, and the main stage. It's hard to like showcase without being disingenuous, like what this event is going to be. And so, fortunately, we have AI. And so we literally can take our actual floor drawings, our layout drawings, and render them into something that is literally what you're going to expect. So keep an eye out for, like what is the Midwest Bitcoin Summit and a lot of the promotional videos, because that'll give you an idea of what this will look like, because it's our first one. It's an inaugural event, but it's not a small one. It's going to be a massive conference. And I think we'll probably be the largest first-time Bitcoin conference of all time.
Excellent. Well, more of a general kind of wrap-up question. What kind of things can we do as Bitcoiners to support this? I assume obviously come and attend would be the first option, but what kind of things could we do? Where should we follow you? Where do you want to drive the narrative? Where do you want to drive us coming to see what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, turning out and being there live in person and attending the conference, like that's, what I'd ask of most people. If you have friends and family that would benefit from this, you have extended family that live in the area, please inform them about it, encourage them to come. If you live in the area, you want to volunteer, which we have plenty of people that are eager to volunteer, but, we're always open to people volunteering. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, like what I would ask of anybody is just keep orange pilling, keep the fire alive inside you, because this is literally our one shot as a society, as humanity, to like right a lot of the wrongs in the world that are foundationally rooted in the monetary system being corrupted. So, I mean, whether you come, you don't come, you pay attention, you don't pay attention, just like if you're a Bitcoiner, keep pushing.
Awesome. Jeff, any final comments for our guest before we sign off?
Andrew, thanks so much for being here today, man. It's a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. And Godspeed to you, brother. If there's anything that we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise.
And we'll be in touch again. We enjoy that you're jumping on a bunch of the spaces, talking about it. I find it interesting as Bitcoiners like Jeff and I, we're pretty deep in the weeds. We know who you are. We see what you're doing, but not every Bitcoiner does. And every time you join like a Bitcoin Today episode or another X Space, it feels like there's other Bitcoiners that are like, oh, I haven't heard about this. Tell me about it. So keep it up. We'll do what we can to help spread the news too, but really appreciate what you're doing out there, and we look forward to the event.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was fun, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. And everybody viewing at home, remember, if you don't have any Bitcoin, just get off of zero. But if you do have some Bitcoin, keep stacking sats. We'll see you guys again on the next one. Take care, everybody.